everybody, it's Margaret Crenshaw with the Prudhomme Team at Carolina Realty Group. And today we're talking real estate stuff with Mr. Bland Kiser. Bland, thanks so much for joining me.
I'm so glad to be here.
I want everybody to know exactly who you are. So Bland is a co-founder of the Prudhomme Team. And you've been in real estate for how long?
25 years now.
Okay.
Wow. I'm dating myself. So
Bland is one of those people that I can say has lived here as long as I have.
Just about. Not quite as long as you.
Well, pretty
76.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Pretty darn close. So, and also, these interview series go out to my database. So a lot of those folks actually don't know you. So tell me a little bit or explain a little bit to the viewers about your dad and his involvement with development on the island.
Yeah. So my full name is Stephen Bland Kiser Jr. At the time of my birth, there were several Stevens in the family. So I was assigned my middle name, Bland. So that's really who I am. It's not a cruel joke or, it's just my name. But in any case, yeah, my dad and mom and dad moved here in 76. And the reason that they did is because my grandfather, Dr. Jack Scurry, my mother's father, he and his three partners from Greenwood, South Carolina, purchased what is now known as Palmetto Dunes. They were down here quail hunting, and someone said, "Hey, Dr. Jack, this land is for sale." And he said, "Oh, really? This is good quail hunting land." He's like, "Well, it'd be probably better to make it into an oceanfront resort." He said, "Duly noted." So anyway, that's how we ended up here. My mom and dad, during their courtship before they were married, came down to visit Palmetto Dunes quite a bit. And and then actually at the time, my dad and J.R. Richardson were working at a Sea Pines development up in Atlanta, near Atlanta. Alpharetta now was out in the country, and now that's part of the city, but that place is called Big Canoe. And that was the Sea Pines development. And so Dad and JR respectfully asked to be transferred back to the home office of Sea Pines Development Company. And so that's what
I didn't really know that. It's so cool when I hear a story that I wasn't really aware of.
Yeah, well, I have this vivid memory of being about 3 years old. Dad and I came down first to find a place to live before, Mom and infant Julia and my brother Jack came down from just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and Concord. But in any case, we got stopped at the drawbridge on the way in, and I'll never forget.
That was the Talmadge,
whatever
James Burns Bridge.
Yes. Yep. And so the bridge was sideways, and we were waiting in a little bit of traffic, and I remember asking my dad, "What is that smell?" He said, "That's the smell of the marsh, son." I haven't let, it's got me ever since.
That's right. It's an unforgettable smell. You can't smell it anywhere else in the world.
No.
And it reminds us of home.
It does.
Very cool. Very neat story. So thanks for sharing that with us. That's nifty.
Well, and I guess I left out your main question. So once Mom and Dad arrived here, Dad was worked with the Sea Pines Company with Charles Fraser from say 76 until about 1984, and then at the time Sea Pines was developing also Hilton Head Plantation, and my dad and a couple of his friends from working up in Hilton Head Plantation formed a company, and then they developed the second half of Hilton Head Plantation and also Indigo Run right across the street, Indigo Run was the last large developable tract of land on the island.
I think that kind of was happening when I was in college, because I remember it all of a sudden being like, "Oh, look, there's a new plantation."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was one that they bought, if I'm not mistaken, in 1990, and they were sold out in 92. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so that was after I was in college.
Yeah.
Anyway, Neat.
So, I
Definitely
mean, but
neat.
you have to think about that for a second. I mean, that was it,
Yeah.
There was no Bluffton at the time. I mean,
Bluffton
of
didn't
course there was
exist.
Bluffton, but Bluffton was just a little postage stamp
That's right.
at the four-way stop. And so that last tract of land, they put into Jack Nicklaus golf courses. And every summer I was there personally installing the sand and the bunkers and cutting roads and all sorts of stuff.
At that time, could you have predicted that you would be a realtor for the majority of your adult life?
No, definitely not. At that time, I was intent on being a guitar player for the rest of my life.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I still am a guitar player, but
Yes, you are.
it was hard starting a family, being out on the road in a van with 4 other gentlemen. I could not foresee starting a family. And so anyway, I digress.
It's amazing that you went from that, of course, to what you are now. Of course, at work, everything that comes out of your mouth I'm like a sponge. I soak up everything that I hear you say. So what I kind of wanted to ask you today about was your thoughts on the last year and a half, sort of a year in review, where the market was, what we've gone through, and sort of where are we going?
Yeah. Well, so that's a great question, and I'll have to answer.
It was like 3, 4, 5, 6 questions all in one.
Well, let me just, if that's okay, because when I think about 2020 and 2021, to me, they all feel like one big year.
That's why I say year and a half.
Yeah.
Instead of,
and, the market was super healthy on the island before the pandemic hit. Hilton Head had been receiving all sorts of accolades, as you know, through publications such as Condé Nast. This is our 7th year in a row being the #1 island in the USA. Travel and Leisure magazine, 10 years in a row. But all that being said, when the pandemic hit, everybody was worried, right? I mean, the whole world. I'm the master of the obvious here. But Dan and I and Preston and others, we were intent to not let it just bring us down. So, we just kept going. We just kept going. And our #1 objective when the pandemic hit was, let's keep everything that we have under contract moving forward, because this is going to pass. There's going to be some solution to this. And so we did that for a month or 2. And then and then quickly we found out, as places like New York and Chicago and San Francisco and all sorts of metro areas were shut down and locked down, that was serious business. And what we saw on the island at that time, say it was April, May, June of 2020, were people saying, hey, I've always wanted that house on Hilton Head Island or that condominium. By goodness, we don't ever want to be locked down in New York or wherever ever again. We're going to go and buy that house. And so they did in 2020. And then as we moved to the end of 2020 and into 2021, we have now, because of the popularity of the island, come into this new era of super, super limited inventory on the island. And so we were talking about this the other day, is I'm advising my clients who really want to be here. We might not, unfortunately, at this moment in time, we might not find the perfect place for you as much as we'd want to. But due to the popularity of the island and, again, when people were locked down during the pandemic, here we had the good fortune to walk out on the beach or go play golf or ride on the bike paths or go play tennis or whatever. And a lot of people didn't have that luxury. And so the people that took action during that time, I think, really thank themselves for doing that. And the people who might have otherwise been thinking about selling their home, I believe, are saying to themselves, although we don't use that house on Hilton Head and they're second home owners or third home, although we don't use that house very often, boy, it sure was nice to go spend 4 months there during the height of the pandemic. So, hopefully all of this is settling down a bit, and yes, there are different variants of the coronavirus and so forth, but one thing is for sure, it has made people reprioritize their lives and say, you know, what is really important and what's not. And I believe that a natural sanctuary like Hilton Head Island is a place where people just can't resist. I mean, who can resist being here?
Right.
I mean, we kind of maybe take it for granted a little bit, but every day I wake up and, you know, I'm just so happy to call this place home.
Absolutely. Well, everybody laughs at me because I'm, you know, nearly 50 years on the island. And, you know, I never like to live where it takes more than 3 minutes to get somewhere. And I know that's ridiculous. I mean, if I had to, I would live 10 minutes away from work.
Yeah.
But, you know, some folks, you know, can commute 45 minutes an hour each way. That would never work for me. So it is funny to a lot of my clients are in that boat. And of course, now with the pandemic and everybody learning that they can work from home and whatnot, you know, Hilton Head is a great solution for folks.
Yeah. And to finish one of your questions, I just wanted to say that, you know, what do I see in the future of the island? It's happening right in front of our eyes, which is just incredibly exciting. And what's happening is you see it when you ride through basically every community on the island. You see it's just about every third house is either undergoing a total renovation, or it's been knocked down. An old house that was maybe built in the 60s or 70s is being knocked down and replaced by something much nicer.
That's right.
And so as the island becomes more and more popular, one thing is true, we're never really going to change the density of the island very much. And so it'll always maintain that character that it has, the natural beauty and the preservation of nature that we know very well.
Set forth by Charles.
So it's just, yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, despite the unfortunate side effects of the pandemic, which are real, and it's been a hard time for a lot of people. Wow. I mean, we're, I guess, kind of some of the most fortunate people in the world to have ridden out the pandemic here.
As we look back and now in the rearview mirror a little bit and say that the peak of this whole thing has really passed, because this time last year, moving into the spring of 2021, was really when the frenzy was at its height, and we were all running, literally running. The minute something came on delayed listing or became active on the MLS, we were running and filming and FaceTiming, and we were selling sight unseen, and it was just, it was an exhausting time to be a realtor. But now we're facing another, I think a year from now, we're going to look back on what's happening now as another peak of sorts. And that is really literally, there is so little inventory that really what I have tell my buyers has been the same for the last year and a half, but it's a little bit different. It's if we can identify a property and get an offer in, every effort should be made to the buyer's best ability to do their very best, bring the best of their financial strength and the status of their portfolio to that offer, and get that property if you really, really want a toehold, because inventory is so low. That's our biggest challenge.
It is. And as you know all too well, what's happening is there is inventory out there, but it's typically in this new status that we know about in our MLS called listing delay. And so whether the general public is working with experienced realtors like you or me, the key word being experienced realtors, they need to be working with an experienced realtor who is working to find that perfect or as close to perfect property as they can, because what we keep seeing over and over and over again, even just on our team, is we put a property in listing delay, and we call the photographer and the videographer, and we, are ready to get them out there. And that usually is this 24, 48, 72-hour process. But before the property makes it out of the listing delay status, someone's bought it. And
right. You've had multiple offers. You've had to choose. Yeah.
So it's not that there isn't any inventory. It just, there's certainly much less inventory, and we'll see what happens in 2022. I'll leave that to Dan and the number crunchers. But
I did speak to Dan last week. So I spoke to Dan last week, and he had some predictions, and then I kind of wanted to get your take on it.
Well, I'd love to know his predictions.
I don't know. And tell me what the most compelling reason, though, for a buyer not to wait in the market that we have right now to go ahead and, I'm getting a lot of phone calls and a lot of messages from my buyers saying, you know what, it's just, we've just decided to put the Hilton Head search on hold. Either they're, the numbers, the sales prices are too high, or inventory is too low, or, Yep.
Well, that is an unfortunate byproduct of what we've been through. But at the same time, I will say that it, in my opinion, is a tremendous benefit to the island moving forward, because what I don't believe we've ever seen, going back to the beginning days of when Charles Fraser started Sea Pines, I don't believe we've ever seen the amount of cash resources being expended by private individuals in this market.
That is true.
And so, translation, people are taking out their checkbooks, and it doesn't matter if it's a $200,000 condominium or a $10 million oceanfront house, they're writing a check for it. And so therefore, unlike what we saw back in 2008, and the subprime crisis that started in 2005, anybody that had a pulse could get 5 mortgages. We don't see that anymore. The banking guidelines are so stringent that even if you're not writing a check, you're put under the microscope so hard that you might as well be writing a check for the purchase. So
that's right.
To that end, I mean, I would say to those who are waiting, you can keep waiting, but barring some kind of, I hate to say something stupid like this, but like getting nuked by North Korea, we don't really see an end to, we don't see an end to this limited inventory.
That's right.
In sight.
That's right. That's right. And there are people who believe a crash is coming. But the indicators just aren't there.
Yeah, I don't pretend to be an economist by any means.
Oh gosh, me neither.
But I think that sure, will the stock market correct at some point? Of course, it always does. Will the real estate market correct at some point? Maybe it'll dip here a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard. If I had the crystal ball, Margaret, I think I'd be retired. But I don't know. I wish I could predict the future, but again, all I can say is the people that are spending their money here right now are happy to be here. They're here for the right reasons, and
they're buying to use the property more, which is, we talked about that last week with Dan. It's there has been a squeeze on the rental market because of that as well. So there's not only less inventory for buyers to purchase, but now there's less inventory for our guests to rent.
Yes.
So we're experiencing a crunch in that market as well, and that's driving rental prices higher as well.
It's economics 101, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just using rough gauges, I would say that based on what I know, at least 30% of the vacation rentals that existed in 2020 no longer exist in 2021.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see more vacation rentals pop up, but at the same time, what's happening is, again, and this is something that it's exciting for me to see unfold, is instead of, we love our vacationers, we always will, but instead of having, as many vacationers, what we're seeing is we're having more full-time residents, and they might be our age, or they might be a little older or a little bit younger. And in every scenario, all the people that I know that have bought what otherwise would have been rental properties and moved here to live here, their parents come down, their friends from college come down.
That's right.
And when they do, guess what they do? They do all the things that vacationers do. They play golf, they go on a fishing charter, they go out to the restaurants, So it's just a different usage model of the island, which I, again, just think it's great.
I think it's great too. Do you have any other last thoughts about the market, the state of the market, where we've been, what we've gone through, and where we're going?
I have a lot of thoughts. I don't know how long it would take me to get them all out, but I would say that Hilton Head Island is such a special place. That Bluffton is such a special place, right across the river, Broad River to the north. Beaufort, little historic Beaufort by the Sea is such a special place. Anywhere between Charleston and Jacksonville is a pretty sought after destination these days.
That is right.
And I think that we are right in the crosshairs of that, and
we are
probably, I would argue, the nicest place to be out of anywhere between those two cities.
I would argue that as well.
So thank you. I don't know if I helped or hurt or whatever, but I'm just glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks so much. And not only do I enjoy being on the team, but yeah, I owe all of this to you because it was your idea for me to join the Prudhomme team. So thank you for that. And
My pleasure.
I'm enjoying it immensely. I know that I am right where I need to be. So happy holidays to you and your family. Happy holidays to our viewers. And we will see you in the new year. Thanks, Bland.
Happy New Year.